Il senso religioso o l'esperienza religiosa è innanzitutto un fatto, un fenomeno obiettivo, un fatto reale, non è un'idea. Innanzitutto non è un modo di sentire. Non solo si tratta di un fatto, di un avvenimento, ma del fatto più imponente e più inestirpabile della storia dell'uomo. Più imponente, più vasto, che neanche il fenomeno dell'amore dell'uomo e della donna, che neanche il fenomeno del rapporto tra genitori e figli. Perché il senso religioso è un avvenimento che pone, che afferma o che ricerca l'orizzonte entro il quale acquisti senso anche il rapporto tra l'uomo e la donna, anche il rapporto tra genitori e figli. Perciò è più vasto, perfino di quelli.
Dieci racconti di solidarietà e aiuto concreto. Storie ricche d'amore, riscatto, coraggio e cura. Storie di persone che donano e che ispirano a costruire una società inclusiva. Una mano a chi sostiene. Storie.
Flessibilità protetta. Politiche del lavoro. Da oltre 20 anni, nel mondo della somministrazione c'è un punto di riferimento per tutti gli attori coinvolti. Formatemp è il fondo che favorisce la qualificazione delle competenze e l'occupabilità dei lavoratori attraverso il finanziamento di percorsi formativi, che li supporta grazie a specifiche tutele reddituali. Formatemp. Sostiene il tuo domani.
Da un'idea di Giorgio Vittadini, un laboratorio di ricerca, formazione, divulgazione per promuovere la cultura della sussidiarietà, motore di democrazia e sviluppo sostenibile. Fondazione per la Sussidiarietà, da 20 anni, un network che crea consapevolezza e partecipazione per il bene comune.
Il senso religioso o l'esperienza religiosa è innanzitutto un fatto, un fenomeno obiettivo, un fatto reale, non è un'idea, innanzitutto non è un modo di sentire, non solo si tratta di un fatto, di un avvenimento, ma del fatto più imponente e più inestirpabile della storia dell'uomo. Più imponente, più vasto, che neanche il fenomeno dell'amore dell'uomo e della donna, che neanche il fenomeno del rapporto tra genitori e figli. Perché il senso religioso è un avvenimento che pone, che afferma o che ricerca l'orizzonte entro il quale acquisti senso anche il rapporto tra l'uomo e la donna, anche il rapporto tra genitori e figli. Perciò è più vasto, perfino di quelli.
Non lo voglio.
Va bene, dai, facciamo così. Adesso dammi solamente un secondo che do una...
Giusto?
Grazie.
No, mi chiedevo Ines, quando se tra l'ultima, lì, dato che questa qui in sala è già la terza volta che va, quando partono le voci, dopo che cosa? C'è una sigla, perfetto.
Inizia il nostro incontro scattando una fotografia del mercato del lavoro oggi e della sua evoluzione negli ultimi anni. Abbiamo chiesto di farlo per noi a Mario Mezzanzanica, che è un Computer Science and Engineering dell'Università-Bicocca di Milano,
Non c'è qua nessuno,
studioso da sempre negli anni del mercato del lavoro.
Non c'è qua nessuno di quelli che non parlano, tutti là, arrivano adesso, ciao. Ciao Irene.
Come?
Dieci racconti di solidarietà e aiuto concreto.
Tanto partiamo in piedi, no?
Riscatto,
Mezzanzanica...
coraggio e cura. Storie di persone che donano e che ispirano a costruire una società inclusiva. Una mano a chi sostiene. Storie.
Vita, tu lì, gli altri...
Flessibilità protetta.
Quanto manca?
Politiche del lavoro.
Mario.
Da oltre 20 anni, nel mondo della somministrazione c'è un punto di riferimento per tutti gli attori coinvolti. Formatemp è il fondo che favorisce la qualificazione delle competenze e l'occupabilità dei lavoratori attraverso il finanziamento di percorsi formativi, che li supporta grazie a specifiche tutele reddituali.
Sì.
Formatemp.
Sì.
Sostiene il tuo domani.
Qua, quella gialla, la seda gialla.
Da un'idea di Giorgio Vittadini, un laboratorio di ricerca, formazione, divulgazione per promuovere la cultura della sussidiarietà, motore di democrazia e sviluppo sostenibile. Fondazione per la Sussidiarietà, da 20 anni, un network che crea consapevolezza e partecipazione per il bene comune.
Sì.
Sì, i video sono quelli lì, li vede lì e... Sì, quello che ha le spalle lo vede lì.
Hai iniziato? Giusto?
C'è il talk, poi dopo partono le voci. Quelle che vedete per il sito sono le voci raccontano nell'area sul
la civiltà dell'amore, fratelli e sorelle, costruite senza stancarvi mai questa civiltà. Lavorate per questo, pregate per questo, soffrite per questo.
vuoi sedere?
Sì, mi siedo sul tavolino. Mi siedo sul tavolino. Posso chiederti una sedia? Vorrei chiederti una sedia per quando scendo, che parla Mezzanzanica. Posso chiederti una sedia, grazie.
Che mettono il time code là. Cosa fanno? 60 minuti. Timer di quanti minuti è? Che timer mettono fuori? 60 minuti. Eccola qua.
Qual è la nostra camera? Quella centrale?
La vedono. Ma qui non c'è problema di camere.
Per me il lavoro è una forma di emancipazione e di realizzazione personale.
È un modo di esprimere te stesso e fare ciò che ti piace in base alle tue scelte.
E il lavoro è poter mettere in campo le mie capacità in un ambito che mi interessa e in cui posso esprimere le mie potenzialità a 360 gradi.
Penso che il lavoro sia come una forma di autodeterminazione.
Bella domanda, dovrebbe essere qualcosa di gratificante. Continuare ad imparare e continuare a crescere, perché abbiamo bisogno di...
It should be something that leads us to grow. We need training 360 degrees. What's a job for you? Work is a main thing. If you have no work, you have no life. To me, working means affirming man within the context of his own life, within something bigger. The wage is important, but also getting some sort of reward in a sense. I think it's the best way to contribute positively to building the world. It is also a way to be happy. In many cases, we don't have people who are proud of what they do for work, who are self-fulfilled. So I wonder, what is there for me outside? Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being here. Thanks for attending. Thank you. Good afternoon to Mrs. Elisei. Thank you. Welcome. We would like to welcome all those who are following us in streaming. We've collected some voices spontaneously in many places of Italy. We asked young people, what is work to you? So these are some answers, but that's the substance of the debate. We can say that we have an emerging need today among young people. These 3 days will be devoted to the world of jobs and works. We will introduce the guests, and in the second day we will talk about young people, and the third day we will talk about women. The topic of work and jobs is a particularly hot topic because we have inflation, because we have a problem related to unemployment, and there's a post-pandemic period that created profound changes in the world of work. We will try together to understand the way in which these changes are taking place. I would like to introduce the guests, the Minister for Work and Social Policies, Mrs. Marina Calderone. Thanks for being here. And then we have Piero Cipollone, the Vice Director General of the Bank of Italy. Welcome. And then we have Massimo Monacelli, the General Manager of Generali, Italia. And last but not least, we have the President of the Foundation for Subsidiarity, Mr. Giorgio Vittadini. We wanted to start this meeting by taking a snapshot of the evolution of the labor market over the last few years. The Professor of Computer Science and Engineering of the University of Milano-Bicocca, Mr. Mezzanzanica, took this snapshot for us, and we'll leave the floor to him now. Thank you, Irene. Welcome to all. Good afternoon to all. I've prepared some slides to give you some food for thought and some hints for reflection when it comes to the labor market, in particular related to young people. So I will use the slides to give you a little bit of content on what's happening. So the focus of the first part of my presentation is linked to the concept of participation of young people to the labor market. To do this, I would like to show you some synthetic data. In this slide, this is the general employment rate of Italy. In the pre-COVID period, we had about 58.5%. Post-COVID, we have 60.1%. In 2022, in the second quarter of the 2023, we reached 61.2%, a result that has never been reached before in Italy, at least over the last 20 years. This means that the general participation of population of working age between 15 and 64 to the labor market. Let's focus on the young people. This is a comparison between some data on employment of young people aged between 20 and 29 in 2022. You see a comparison between Italy, France, Spain, Germany, the key countries in terms of population that we can compare with Italy. As you can see, Italy has a percentage of 48.2%, 28 points less than Germany. This means that the participation to the labor market on the part of young people aged between 20 and 29 is quite lower than it is in other European countries we compare our situation with. We went beyond that, trying to understand this employment rate and its correlation with the concept of schooling certifications. Up to primary school or junior high school, you have a percentage of 29%. If you have a diploma as a young person, we have a rate of 43.5%, and it grows even more in case of those people having a degree or a post-degree certification. This tells us substantially that the school certification and school diploma affects the participation to the labor market. It is a great opportunity to take part in the labor market. For those who have a university degree or have a post-university degree certification, of the last 4 years, this value grew by 5.5%. Let's have a look now at the difference based on gender in Italy. Here too, based on the school qualification. You see the big difference between those having no schooling or low schooling abilities, low schooling diplomas among the female and male population. You see a big difference between male and women. And it's very interesting to see that those who have a degree or post-university degree, we have the same values. So the male and female genders are almost equal. I could not but tackle the topic of the NEET, those young people having not employed and not in studying careers. We have about 1.6 million young people. That's an absolute value that I brought to you. However, this figure has been decreasing over the years. In Italy in 2022, we have about 19% of the population belonging to this age bracket. The biggest crisis refers to the southern Italian regions and the islands of Italy. In northern Italian regions, this problem remains quite significant, yet it is around 11–12%. So we have different percentages according to the areas of Italy. At this point, I come to a more qualitative and quantitative analysis that I'd like to show you on the topic regarding especially people having a university degree. This part of my presentation is called Mobility, Opportunity, Competencies and Values. These are 4 aspects that I think are interesting to show what's happening to young people vis-à-vis work. The concept of opportunity. Not all the people, young people having a university degree, have the same opportunities. And this is a datum, a figure from Alma Laurea. The source is Alma Laurea 2023. And you can see the most favored groups and the least favored groups. Those having a university degree in ICT, industrial or information engineering, or a degree in healthcare studies, pharmaceutical, architecture, civil engineering, scientific, agrarian, veterinarian, economic, education, and training. So you see the profiles from the top ranking opportunities to the least opportunities. And then there are those having a university degrees in psychology, arts and design, literature, and humanistic and juridical. They are less favored, but this doesn't mean that they don't have any opportunities. However, there's a big difference in Italy. Italy is divided into 2 different countries, so to say, in a significant way. In northern Italian regions are those with a university degree, show substantially a 43% likelihood higher than those with a university degree living in southern Italy. What is the consequence of this fact? The consequence is that many people displace for job purposes. In northern Italian regions, we have displacement of people accounting for 8.2% of young people. In the center of Italy, we have 22.3% young people displacing themselves. In southern and Italian regions, we have a percentage of 47.4% of people, young people, going from southern Italian regions to northern Italian regions, which is a loss for southern territories which are abandoned. I will go on with a figure that comes from the web. We've been collaborating with several organizations to collect datum. We've collected about 5 million announcements related to work and to jobs. I will now focus on showing you how competencies and abilities are changing, and the drivers for competencies and skills. The skills are one of the key elements defining a profession. Today, these skills are becoming increasingly important for job insertion. In the study that we carried out, I will just show you a slide where digital and cross-cutting skills, soft skills, are those skills which are driving the changes in data analysis to support processes, in the area of innovation and processes when it comes to automotive and services, in the area of relation management within organizations or relations with the prospects, customers or with the customers. The other figure that is very significant is the concept that I called development of personality. Soft skills, working in a group, team working, creativity, being able to adjust to changes and demonstrate responsibility are among the elements that are mostly sought by the companies offering a job. Today, in order to face the complexities of the labor market, you need specific skills, but also a whole personality able to tackle the complexity of the market. The last slide I'm going to show you is something that really impressed me. In the analysis of Alma Laurea, young people are asked which elements are growing the more according to them. This is a variation between 2017 to now when it comes to the changing elements in the vision of work on the part of young people. We have autonomy, which means sort of challenging oneself, being able to come into play with one's own responsibilities and skills. Then the importance of the relationship with the colleagues. Work means relationships, and the social utility, social usefulness of work, of jobs. This is the element that impressed me the most. The need of young people to see their work as something useful for the whole society. Thank you.
Grazie professore.
Grazie professor Mezzanzanica. Allora, premettiamo che questo incontro è possibile naturalmente rivedere.
Thank you very much. This meeting, this session can be seen in the meeting website, on the meeting website, and if I were a parent, I would think about considering this opportunity and considering the slides that we've just seen along with my kids. We asked for a sacrifice on the part of Professor Mezzanzanica, because he summarized in just 15 minutes what I normally teach over 2 years. So in the decree of last May, Minister Calderone, you've launched some measures in order to favor the hiring of young people. We focus on young people and women. Are other measures being studied? Do you have any signs of possible changes or not? Good afternoon, everybody. Well, I have to say that beyond the measures that were introduced with the work and job decree, it is important to evaluate the overall approach, which also relates to what the professor had just mentioned. I think it's important to accompany with the proper tools and instruments the big transformations are underway. And most of all, what the young people expect from us as government. In the slides that we've just seen, I think that first of all, we may say that many commonplaces have been removed. Young people are often depicted as being far away from the labor market. They are depicted as lacking interest and lacking passion vis-à-vis the high ideal of work-related inclusion having a social repercussion. On the contrary, the professor highlighted exactly the opposite situation, the need to be engaged and committed to doing something which has a weight and which gives an important contribution to the progress of society, having the feeling that you are part of something bigger than you and you can provide a favorable and important contribution to making this wider thing even more important than it is. So we can accompany these processes with all the instruments of and incentives for hiring workers, especially when it comes to those employers deciding to bet on young people and invest on young people, the need that were mentioned earlier. However, there is no instrument per se efficient from an economic and financial point of view that can have such an important social consequence. What is important is to look at the trends and try and understand how these trends will evolve. And this is why we should focus on the topic of training, requalification, and having young people understand that when you submit a robust training to the employer, you have more opportunities. And there may be a reduction in the gender gap. The professor highlighted that women, if women are more trained and they have a higher degree when it comes to schools, they have more opportunities. So the incentives that we are now favoring are already having some positive effects. But I don't want to continue reasoning in terms on the reduction of the labor costs. It is a very important topic. Of course, it has to be tackled in a structural way and in the budget law. But we are making a different reasoning. We are reasoning in terms of a whole system. And this reasoning lies at the basis of other interventions. The Italian labor market, of course, needs a structural vision which is not just temporary. The National Resilience Plan certainly helps in this direction. And I come to you, Mr. Cipollone, with the Bank of Italy. You've carried out a specific study on this in order to clarify the consequences and the repercussions for the labor market of the National Resilience Plans. What are the results of this study? Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you again for inviting me. Very rapidly, some colleagues of the research department have tried to translate the figures referring to the people employed into the costs. Well, it was quite a complicated kind of work to be carried out. We needed to start from the expenditure, and then we had to translate all these elements into a number of people. So I will spare the technicalities. You do not just have to connect the expenditure to the several missions. I will just give you an example. The kindergartens have to do with buildings, and not only with education, because you need to build new kindergartens. So inverting the input-output metrics, the colleagues managed to reach a dimension of the impact. So the interesting aspects that emerged is that the impact is quite significant. The weighting is for about 300, expectations for about 300,000 workers more. This is quite a significant number. And even more interestingly, if we have a breakdown of this figure according to types, the fundamental impact is in the building sector. Out of these 300,000 new jobs, about 100,000 comes from the building sector. But to my surprise, it is a figure I did not expect, to be honest. An important part also has to do with the advanced professions, data analytics, IT sector, development and research. And here we have some problems, and we have some questions as well. The first question is, let's assume we have this 100,000 workers already available in the building sector. Then the National Resilience Plan will end, and we will have a sector which is engrossed, so to say, by this increase in the demand. Many of these works are routine work. We will have a problem in relocating these works, because this sector will not continue forever with the same pace that it has now. So the question is, what will all these people do when the National Resilience Plan comes to an end? So we need to think about retraining processes, and this should be very useful. The other interesting element is the increase in the demand in sectors we did not expect. Advanced sectors. We are talking about 40,000 workers, quite a lot of them if they are compared to the historic records. Historically, the demand for this kind of worker was less intense than it is. We're talking about 45,000 workers, highly specialized. We're talking about experts in mathematics, engineers, physicists. I had a look at how many students are attending scientific faculties now. If I'm not mistaken, we work every day about, every year, 8,000 people get a degree in mathematics and physics, so 8,000 people per year. Bear in mind that the teachings for mathematics are about 50,000 So we have quite a high number of positions to be covered. When it comes to engineers, we have about 40,000 engineers per year. So we're going to have a boost in the demand. The question is, are we going to be able, with the current students attending the courses, to meet this kind of demand for the future? So this is an example of what expects us, what we expect for the future. The transformation of society will increasingly ask for this kind of specialist figures in the future. But if you have a look at the STEM faculties and those who enrolled, the composition of these faculties has not changed over the last few years. And so the enrollments are not changing, even though these kind of sectors will be in high demand. So it is important to create jobs, but it is also important to be able to adjust to the trends that we are starting to see for the future. We just want to give you some food for thought. Referring to some problems marking the labor market today. Mr. Monacelli, you are the general manager of Generali Italia, a big insurance company of Italy, a resource that may help employment when it comes to women is the one related to welfare. You are leaders in this respect. Every year you carry out this index with several hundreds of small and medium-sized enterprises. What do these enterprises require in order to be more to make more proposals? Well, company welfare is becoming increasingly important, especially vis-à-vis the many profound changes and rapid changes that our society is experiencing. Over the last few years, the company welfare widened the range of services and coverage. It touches upon topics related to health. We all know that health has become one of the core topics of the country. It is also changed to the. It is also linked to the changes. Training, for instance, has become very, very important vis-à-vis the enormous changes that we are all confronted with. Digitization, the spreading of the artificial intelligence, automation of processes, all this requires people to be requalified and retrained over and over again. Changes also refer to the lifestyles of people. So a whole gamut of interventions on which company welfare becomes a fundamental interlocutor. It becomes an in-between, an intermediary vis-à-vis the needs of people. And the services are also becoming more and more important. From this point of view, the companies are making enormous progress. Our welfare index is an initiative launched several years ago by Generali. We started with just a few hundreds of small and medium-sized enterprises who joined this initiative. It is a survey on the welfare quality that was developed by the small and medium-sized enterprise. Today, we've reached almost a high percentage of companies that participated when it comes to welfare supplied by the companies, which is very, very important. I am impressed by the creativity of services that are linked to the needs of the individual companies according to the needs of the individual employees. Then there are other clear facts. Small and medium-sized enterprises and enterprises in general having a developed welfare also generate more profits. There's a direct correlation between the welfare and the ability to produce the values on the part of a company. And within these companies, we find more women in managerial posts and apical posts. I cannot create a link between the presence of women in managerial tasks, the presence of welfare, but what is certain is that these elements are related to one another.
Thank you very much for speaking about that, because as our title says, we want to understand the changes underway right now. So let's continue with President Vittadini. But before that, since we want to talk about the youth and the labor market, I'll make you listen to what some HR officers in Italy said. So those are people who then are going to recruit the youth. Let's have the video. I believe that the pandemic has taught each and every one of us, and in particular the youth, that the life-work balance is now a priority. Therefore, we needed to question ourselves and to find new formulas. Work has to provide a means of living. Today, performance is not the most important thing. People must be satisfied with their job. And so they need to feel part of the project, feel part and parcel of the group. However, together with the salaries, people are asking for professional growth. People want to have a new prospects, a future prospects, and they want to be able to live while working. And therefore, the sector has to change. During the selection, people are asking whether they can work online. If not, they don't want to work for you. In weaker regions, from an industrial and economic point of view, the youth have fewer expectations in terms of finding a job for the university course that they have attended. They accept any type of activity to then enter the labor market. This is not the case for other sectors or other regions which are mostly industrialized. Young people often say that to them, a 2 to 3 years term is a very long-term horizon, because every 6 months they want to have a new experience, they want to do something new, and we are considering that. So, President Vittadini, the last issue of Nuova Atlantide, the magazine of the Foundation for Subsidiarity, is focusing on the youth. Now, here it is. There is a very important title. Who are you? Who are we? What have these questions got to do with the new needs of the youth penetrating the labor market? As far as what I've heard, I can just say that personality is a key word. Non-cognitive skills means shifting from skills to creativity, team building, opening up to the outer world, motivation. And this is an aspect of a personality of a person. But there is more to that. People actually need to have a personality. I mean, young people are not framed in something. They have to be more creative than that. They have to be original. They have to be unique, unrepeatable, as John Paul II said. Every person that wants to work understands that and can understand the change will have a fruitful career. Otherwise, they will not be successful on the labor market. Thank you. Minister. Professor Mezzanzanica gave us a lot of data, and there is one particularly interesting. There are some structural problems in Italy. There's a mismatch between skills and labor market needs. And that creates unemployment. On the 1st of September, you announced a new platform managed by the National Italian Security Authority that will help people find a new job. There have already been a lot of databases. Why are you so confident in this new platform and in its success? Well, this is a very provocative question, I have to say. Before answering, I want to give you the context. You are perfectly right. There must be a match between demand and supply. And for the past 20 years, we have had a database that was implemented through the Biagi law. Unfortunately, then this law was not successful and this database was not successful because there are many infrastructural problems in managing a labor market which is quite varied. There are different decision-making levels, and there are many different entities deciding and bearing responsibilities for the labor market. So why should work be different today if the constitutional layout is still the same? Well, because actually we have worked on subsidiarity, a topic which is dear to the people here at the meeting, and we have worked on the ability of collaborating among different entities having specific skills. So in the labor decree that was approved on the 1st of May, you can find that cooperation between different entities giving their contribution and ensuring data interoperability and information interoperability, which is not easy and which cannot be taken for granted. Oftentimes, even if you look at the archive of labor communications and labor reports, when you ask for a worker's file, if the worker has worked in different regions, maybe some data could be missing. But there's an entity which collects all this information, actually two entities collecting all this information. One is the Ministry of Labor, and the other one is the Italian National Social Security Authority. Because even if you've had a job for one day in Italy, this is registered because a communication has been sent to the National Social Security Authority. This is why today we have combined the IMSS database with all the other existing databases. And then we have also been working with labor agencies. And labor agencies know exactly about labor supplies and temporary work agencies. Then there's a platform, this platform that will start on the 1st of September will just be managing the shift from reddito della cittadinanza, as in the money given to unemployed people, and to the new inclusion check, so to speak. This platform will also manage the reskilling and upskilling of people. And they will be able to look for job posts that are available. The objective is for this platform to match demand and supply. And this platform is also gonna be a way to better compete on the labor market. Oftentimes, people have asked me, do you think that there's a competition between the public and the private sector? I'm always saying that when you compete in order to achieve a common objective and a common result, you must not be afraid of words. You have to be afraid of the false myths and of biases. So, even if things have not been working in the past, it doesn't mean that they will not be working in the future. Saying that things will not be working in the future means wanting to be negative. But here we are making efforts not in the interest of the government or the Ministry of Labor, but in the interest of the youth who have clearly said that they want to get on board and they want to be convinced and they want to have a contract, but they want to contribute more than that. They just don't want to work. They want to do something more. Then I think that it is totally useless only to focus on salaries. Focusing on salaries means once again not listening to what the youth are saying. So, Minister, you will be invited next year. Next year we're going to invite you in order to have the first results of this platform that will start on the 1st of September. I'm used to that because I've been a freelance myself, and therefore on field we are assessed according to the results that we give to the people, to our customers, clients. So I think that the first results will appear much earlier, so that we can understand how to take on new challenges that have to involve the third sector and all the third sector organizations that can help us a lot, especially in terms of social inclusion. Thank you. Cipollone. In your previous life, if I may say, you were president of Invalsi, which is the National Institute for the Assessment of the Educational and Training System. So you are an expert on training. The National Recovery Plan has allocated significant resources to this sector. Are we exploiting this opportunity or missing this opportunity?
Well, it is interesting because this is some kind of déjà vu. Because I think 8 years ago, I was in this same hall discussing the same problems, and the understanding of Professor Vittadini is of the greatest level, because we have always highlighted the importance of the quality of education. For a long time as a country, we have been in denial because we were convinced that our school was an excellent school. Well, it is true, partially. Our primary schools continue to be excellent, as the results of the latest surveys show. But in all this pathway, and I'm looking at it from a distance now because I work in a different environment, there were elements that we highlighted at the time that are now at the center of the debate. That is to say, quantity. We have a serious problem of human capital in terms of how many young people actually study. There is a slow progress, but we are still far away from the target, from the results of our European partners. But, and this is even more serious, is our backwardness in terms of what these young people learn, their skills, their knowledge. I know that in the next few days, the president of Invalsi will be here, and I think he will talk about this. What we can see at the moment is that results are not satisfactory at the moment in terms of basic skills for our young people. And then there is a third dimension. We can not really measure it at the moment, as Professor Vittadini was saying, that is to say, the fact that people are ready to risk something, to become citizens that will be able to be part of the labor market for their own lives. So technological transformation turn what we know into something obsolete, no longer needed in a very short time. So this is the question: how can we give young people a personality that will help them start all over again every 3-4 years, because we come from a world where changes were very slow. Our fathers changed their jobs maybe once during their lifetime. Young people want to change job after a year now. So this is dimension that is, well, less known, but nevertheless one of the most important factors. So we need to measure that, and we have to reflect upon this. So, Mr. Monacelli, this personality needs to be enhanced, but that calls for the presence of a manager of an enterprise that can actually recognize the value of a certain personality. So the manager needs to recognize a certain talent. So I think about so many entrepreneurs who are following us right now. And I ask you, what is your concrete experience? How can we attract these talented or skilled young people? Well, we have been working for years now on this kind of themes. We talked about small and medium enterprises before, but we have been working on this in terms of welfare for our people. And since we have 15,000 employees in Italy, this means a lot of work, because our people give us feedbacks and new ideas, inputs. So it is a co-creation of welfare together with all our employees, all of us, and this makes our model particularly effective. It is true what we heard today, that is to say that young people have different expectations today, and this is easy to see. Young people who started working in an enterprise in the past wanted two things, a career and a salary. But well, nowadays, this is not what young people ask. They ask for autonomy, flexibility, professional pathways that have their own logic. They ask for a thorough experience of a certain company. So equity, inclusion, these are values that are considered as fundamental, basic by the youth. So this has changed the model of new employees, young employees. So what is the solution here? The solution is to create new cooperation and trust relationships between employer and employees. A pact that is not only limited to smart working, because there is a debate about smart working, remote, and so on. But this is just an element of a flexibility that is bigger. So this is what we have to work at. So this is the right key to look at the situation at the moment, the welfare element, and this is actually one of the most important aspects in our meeting today. There is another element that we would like to look at together. It started in the United States, and then it spread throughout Europe. That is to say, the great resignation. So young people who decided to resign because they look for a better balance between professional and private life, something that was unthinkable for their parents, for instance, or for the previous generations. So a study on this, because also in Italy we do have this kind of phenomenon, was carried out by the University Politecnico of Milan. Professor Mariano Corso interviewed Alessia Pomponio and talks about some important aspects. Well, this phenomenon of the great resignations in our country, we find the desire to find a new relationship with our talents, with our jobs. So people look for new jobs. 47% of workers and of employees in Italy have either just changed job or are trying to change their jobs. So this goes up to 77% if we talk about young people, the so-called Z generation. So there is this strong desire of meaning, of importance, and this is a great opportunity for companies, for enterprises that can acquire new competitiveness on the market of talents. Once you have changed your job, you feel better, you're more satisfied. What does your survey say? Well, 41% of the employees who changed their job after 1 year, they actually would like to go back to their previous job. So this is a clear message that shows how this search for meaning often doesn't find an answer, because what young people look for is maybe something that is inside themselves. And the organizations, and above all, the most traditional organizations, cannot actually offer this opportunity. So there's this gap, this lack of satisfaction that makes the efficiency of these talents decrease. So one young person out of two, after they have left their first job, they continued to be unhappy. So I go back to what Professor Mezzanzanica was saying, one of the young women who was interviewed at the beginning. So I would like to do something in my life, a job that can be also useful in terms of social aspects. So what is something that gives satisfaction, actually? Do you remember Wall Street, Michael Douglas's performance? Well, now performance is not the center anymore. So we have people who are not satisfied, but this is not the right way to find your ideal lifestyle. So life and job have nothing to do with this. There is a different way to tackle this. Job is, well, is a tool, but it's not everything. If we still carry on these theories and we do not start from our ideals, those who look for a better performance, those who change jobs, well, they give job an importance that the job cannot have. So this is something that we discuss a lot here at the Rimini meeting. Professor Monacelli, you have thousands of employees. Did you experience this great resignation phenomenon? And how? Well, I asked you, how do you attract talents? And now I ask you, how do you keep them with you? Because this is the great challenge that many companies have to face. Yes, this is undoubtedly true. We have a very low turnover. We do not actually have this phenomenon of huge resignation waves, and we can actually keep our better talents in a very satisfying way. And I think that, well, the key here is the sum of all the things we talked about today. So the goal of work, and here the insurance sector is particularly suitable for that. Even though this is a sector that is not always well praised, it is actually very interesting work, because it has to do with the safety of people. So it has an important social role to play. So pact based on trust and confidence, flexibility, autonomy in the organization of the working activity, smart working, rethinking of the job workplaces, because if you ask someone to come to the office, it needs to have some meaning, the fact that this person is present there. So all these welfare tools that we talked about contribute to give these people, our employees, a sense of importance, and this is what makes the difference, according to us. So this is why we can actually keep our talents. So let's look together at this video. We went to Mantua in a very famous company. A majority of female employees, and here there is an important focus given to welfare. I have 2 children. In my previous job interviews, when I said that I was a mom, that I had 2 kids, well, everything changed. But now everything changed here. When you have kids, well, a woman shouldn't choose between being a mom or working. And this, well, here I found the right balance to put together my family life and my professional life.
Mantova, fine giugno 2000.
Mantova, end of June 2023. These interviews could also be 1 century old. This company was founded in 1911. The policies of welfare started between the 2 world wars and are still carried on by the descendants of the founders, Luigi Bianchi. And we have over than 300 employees. 80% are women, and we think that the human resources are the most important resources we have. So we really want to safeguard the well-being of our employees, and we want to help them to match their personal and professional needs. All started about 100 years ago with, for instance, an internal infirmary and residential spaces near the enterprise. After the fall of 1968, the first part-time works. And then in the 90s, a new trend with specialized medical visits or medical appointments and other benefits, so to speak. So we started what we call the baby lubium, that is to say, help for the kids, the children of our employees, when schools are closed during Easter holidays or Christmas holidays. So this had a great success, so that it became more and more structured. And in 2010, this became a real kindergarten, internal kindergarten. And this actually changed my life, because I had to run to take my kids to school and then to run to work. I was always worried to be late, and now I just arrive at ease with my kids. I leave them here at the kindergarten. I can work without any stress, any anxiety. Yeah, I feel better now, because I know that my baby is here. She's near where I am, and if she would ever need anything, I'd be really close by. And then there are other aspects. For instance, there are economic supports for sports activity, as well as other benefits in terms of schools and education. For us, this is an investment. It is a strategic development factor to have employees who work at their best is very important for us. It really makes it possible for us to have a great retention and to attract the best talent of the region.
Stato la misura, ma perché tu sei ribelle? Perché voglio il mondiale!
Ringraziamo.
So we would like to thank Davide Giuliani for this interview. It's a very positive experience. We wanted to show this to you because, well, just to show you that it is possible. It is something that already exists and that could be translated into other enterprises. You said, Minister, that after the pandemic, welfare has become a central topic. So do you intend to give more economic aids to the enterprises? Well, what we saw is exactly the kind of answer to those who ask for a solution on, for instance, minimum wages. The fact that this is not the only element that makes a difference. We need to have a whole entrepreneurial system where there are services for the employees. So yes, this is my answer. Yes, we want to guarantee good contracts for our employees and specifically company welfare. This actually meets the need to give concrete answers to the needs of our employees. And I agree with what Vittadini said. We cannot expect from work something that has come to a different dimension from a different life project. So our parents and the grandparents used to say, we work to live, and we don't live to work. So, well, all this has to be turned into a real structured system, and we need to turn our workplaces into an environment where people can develop and find an answer to their needs. As parents, for instance, with a company kindergarten or a district kindergarten. So then there are different actions that we will carry out on the welfare aspect. Are there any fiscal aid that can be given to enterprises that wanted to invest in the welfare of their employees? Yes, we already did something in the budget law of last year. We have reduced to 5% on the productivity rewards, and I think we really should broaden the number of elements that can be subject to fewer taxes. We have to invest in assets that can actually respond to the needs that our employees have. So support to the family, to the long-term care, the theme of the health of the families, which is something that is very interesting also for young people that were interviewed after the pandemic. So this is part of my to-do list. And since well, you have already mentioned the minimum wage. This is something that is extremely important in the current debate. But you, Minister, what do you think the result will be? I think in a vision of stability of the labor market and with a vision, a future vision, I can say that if we need to identify one single element, one single point of reference, a number, so to speak, this would create problems in managing the different contract and wage dynamics. And we then couldn't be able to invest in productivity and in giving back to our employees the value of their productivity. So we have to look at the value of a contract and the potential that it can express with all the other contractual institutes. So we have to talk about a fair wage. And this is something we needed to work on. We have to fight against the, so to speak, poor work, the black market of work, because when we hear people saying that they work for a few euros per hour, well, there are no collective bargains that foresee a pay of 3 euros per hour, but there are situations where the contracts are not applied. But we have already authorities that carry out their research on this. We are now concluding.
Qui abbiamo fatto vedere alcuni titoli che
So we showed you some titles of the newspapers. So, Professor Vittadini, the title of this meeting talks about friendship. So normally we think that friendships is something that is part of our private life. But what is then the relationship between friendship and work? Well, work is a meeting in a way, and In a meeting, the enterprise and the employee need to find a meeting point, need to get closer, need to understand each other. So this is the dynamics of modern times. Things have changed. The fixed roles are not a reality anymore. So this meeting of people is the future. And this puts together the idea of friendship and the idea of work. Thank you. Thanks to all our guests. We will meet again for the next 2 talks on Wednesday and Thursday on the youth and on women. Have a nice evening.
Grazie. È stato un piacere.
Grazie mille.
Possiamo abusare.
Civiltà dell'amore, fratelli e sorelle, costruite senza stancarvi mai questa civiltà. Lavorate per questo, pregate per questo, soffrite per questo.
Religioso o l'esperienza religiosa è innanzitutto un fatto, un fenomeno obiettivo, un fatto reale, non è un'idea, innanzitutto non è un modo di sentire, non solo si tratta di un fatto, di un avvenimento, ma del fatto più imponente e più inestirpabile della storia dell'uomo. Più imponente, più vasto, che neanche il fenomeno dell'amore dell'uomo e della donna, che neanche il fenomeno del rapporto tra genitori e figli. Perché il senso religioso è un avvenimento che pone, che afferma o che ricerca l'orizzonte entro il quale acquisti senso anche il rapporto tra l'uomo e la donna, anche il rapporto tra genitori e figli. Perciò è più vasto, perfino di quelli.
10 racconti di solidarietà e aiuto concreto. Storie ricche d'amore, riscatto, coraggio e cura. Storie di persone che donano e che ispirano a costruire una società inclusiva. Una mano a chi sostiene. Storie.
Flessibilità protetta. Politiche del lavoro. Da oltre 20 anni, nel mondo della somministrazione c'è un punto di riferimento per tutti gli attori coinvolti. Formatemp è il fondo che favorisce la qualificazione delle competenze e l'occupabilità dei lavoratori attraverso il finanziamento di percorsi formativi, che li supporta grazie a specifiche tutele reddituali. Formatemp. Sostiene il tuo domani.
Da un'idea di Giorgio Vittadini, un laboratorio di ricerca, formazione, divulgazione per promuovere la cultura della sussidiarietà, motore di democrazia e sviluppo sostenibile. Fondazione per la Sussidiarietà, da 20 anni, un network che crea consapevolezza e partecipazione per il bene comune.
Il senso religioso o l'esperienza religiosa è innanzitutto un fatto, un fenomeno obiettivo, un fatto reale, non è un'idea, innanzitutto non è un modo di sentire. Non solo si tratta di un fatto, di un avvenimento, ma del fatto più imponente e più inestirpabile della storia dell'uomo. Più imponente, più vasto, che neanche il fenomeno dell'amore dell'uomo e della donna, che neanche il fenomeno del rapporto tra genitori e figli. Perché il senso religioso è un avvenimento che pone, che afferma o che ricerca l'orizzonte entro il quale acquisti senso anche il rapporto tra l'uomo e la donna, anche il rapporto tra genitori e figli. Perciò è più vasto, perfino di quelli.
Dieci racconti di solidarietà e aiuto concreto. Storie ricche d'amore, riscatto, coraggio e cura. Storie di persone che donano e che ispirano a costruire una società inclusiva. Una mano a chi sostiene. Storie.
flessibilità protetta, politiche del lavoro. Da oltre 20 anni, nel mondo della somministrazione c'è un punto di riferimento per tutti gli attori coinvolti. Formatemp è il fondo che favorisce la qualificazione delle competenze e l'occupabilità dei lavoratori attraverso il finanziamento di percorsi formativi, che li supporta grazie a specifiche tutele reddituali. Formatemp sostiene il tuo domani.
Da un'idea di Giorgio Vittadini, un laboratorio di ricerca, formazione, divulgazione per promuovere la cultura della sussidiarietà, motore di democrazia e sviluppo sostenibile. Fondazione per la Sussidiarietà, da 20 anni, un network che crea consapevolezza e partecipazione per il bene comune.